Greetings, folks. Today is Tuesday, January 8th, the year 2019. Hope you caught up on the year. Don't write any checks out for 2018. Anyway, okay, what I want to talk about today, by the way, my name is Tom Lineweaver, and this is my commentary. What I want to talk about today is abortion, specifically Roe v. Wade. Now, I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh every day. And Rush basically mirrored everything I believed. He doesn't anymore, but he did at one time. And one of the things that he said is that Roe v. Wade was bad law. Now, he probably explained it. I don't remember how he explained it. But he was right. It is bad law. And I'm going to discuss why it's bad law. Now, I'm going to give you, I've written extensively about this subject, and I'm going to give you a link underneath the, what do you call it? In the comment section here of YouTube. I'm going to give you a link to where you can find my articles about this subject. But I'm going to read you one. This is called Roe v. Wade Application Unconstitutional. The Constitution sets up three branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, in that order. Each has their respective duties in regards to the law. The legislative branch makes the laws. The executive branch carries out the laws, and that comes from the legislative. And the judicial branch adjudicates the laws from the legislative. Article 1 of the Constitution gives information about the legislative, their makeup, powers, and responsibilities. Article 2 does the same thing for the executive branch, and Article 3 does the same thing for the judicial branch. Article 3 of the Constitution sets up the one Supreme Court as the highest court in the United States. It explains in what cases the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction and in what cases they have appellate jurisdiction. Now, appellate jurisdiction comes from lower courts. You know, you have a case that comes up from a lower court, you have an appellate jurisdiction. Now, nowhere, back to the article, nowhere does Article 3 state that the Supreme Court has the power to either make law or repeal law. Making laws and repealing laws are the job of the legislature. And yet that is how their decisions are always applied. And I believe that is unconstitutional. Again, the judiciary does not have the power to pass or repeal laws. And as far as I can find out so far, passing and repealing laws is not an appellate function. Therefore, no law in any state should have been struck down, not even the Texas law, where this case began, because that is not an appellate function. The only function of an appellate court is to determine if the lower courts got the decisions right. Constitutionally, the Supreme Court does not have the power to end any law in any state. unless, based on the 10th Amendment, the state passed a law that is specifically prohibited by the Constitution. And there are very few things that are prohibited by the Constitution to the states, such as there is no prohibition by the Constitution to the states to have laws regarding reproduction. And that is what the Texas law in question was about. And since the court made the decision based on privacy, even if they had the power to strike down laws, the laws of the states regarding reproduction should not have been struck down, since the majority decision had nothing to do with reproduction, or very little to do with reproduction, which was a point of the dissenting opinions written by Justices Byron R. White and William H. Rehnquist. In their dissent, Justice White wrote, quote, "And I find nothing in the language of history of the Constitution to support the court's judgment. The court simply fashions and announces a new constitutional right for pregnant women, and with scarcely any reason or authority for its action, invests that right with sufficient substance to override most existing state abortion statutes." The upshot is that the people and the legislatures of the 50 states are constitutionally disentitled to weigh the relative importance of the continued existence and development of the fetus, on the one hand, against the spectrum of the possible impacts on the women, on the other hand. As an exercise of raw judicial power, the court perhaps has authority to do what it does today. But in my view, its judgment is an improvident and extravagant exercise of the power of judicial review that the Constitution extends to this court. The quote is from Wikipedia. Now, I want to pause there. Take a look at that. Justice White got it right. Hey, we could make a bumper sticker out of that. Justice White got it right. The Supreme Court really did not have the power to do what they did. They just didn't. Anyway, the Supreme Court, back to the article. Supreme Court, according to White, does not have the power to disentitle the people or the legislatures of the 50 states to enact laws regarding the relative importance of the continued existence and development of the fetus. Yet that is how this decision was applied. And that is why I say the Roe v. Wade decision of the court was unconstitutionally applied, since the court's decision had nothing to do with reproductive standards, but rather the right of the privacy, as the majority opinion states. Right of privacy, whether it be founded in the 14th Amendment concept of personal liberty and restrictions upon state action, as we feel it is, or as the district court determined in the 19th Amendment's reservation of rights to the people, is broad enough to encompass a woman's decision whether or not to terminate her pregnancy. Now maybe they could make such a decision. Okay? So what should have happened as a result of Roe v. Wade is the woman then has the right to decide whether or not to terminate her pregnancy. But then, based on all the laws of the states, she wouldn't be able to do that. Nobody says that she doesn't have the privacy of mind to make that decision. But you can't do it because state law says you can't do it. All right? So, anyway, so in order for this to work, state laws have to be struck down. Anyway, and that's why they made that decision in the they basically demanded that state laws be struck down. Anyway, final thoughts in this article. So you see, since the decision was based on the right to privacy, the laws in the states regarding reproduction should have remained intact. See that? I just said that. I didn't know I wrote it. And since the court does not have the power to repeal laws, to begin with, no law should have been struck down. Appellate decisions should only affect the one case. However, this case, the whole thing is moot since the baby has already been delivered by the time of this decision. Since the baby has been delivered, how did the mother even have standing to bring this case to the Supreme Court? No matter how you look at it, Roe v. Wade was a rotten decision and totally misapplied to the states. All right. Now I go into other things. I mean, one of the things that the decision, the majority decision talked about is equal rights. But what the Roe v. Wade decision did is made women more equal than other people. For example, the 14th Amendment states that that all the people of this country have the right to equal protection of the laws. Now, this Roe v. Wade violates that part of the Constitution. For example, you tell me what man has the right to tell a woman to have an abortion? He doesn't have the equal protection of the laws. Or what if he wants to keep the baby? Does he have a right to do that? He could say, hey, don't have an abortion. I will take care of my child. But he doesn't have a right to do that, according to Roe v. Wade. And so, therefore, men do not have equal protection of the laws. It's as simple as that. If a man does not have the equal rights of the laws, then Roe v. Wade was a bad decision. What they have done, and I've had this argument with people before. The Constitution doesn't give rights to single individuals. The Constitution gives right to people. The preamble starts off with we the people. It doesn't say we the individuals. But today we think that individually we have rights that other people don't have. And that is what led to this travesty. The idea that somebody has a right that other people don't. We don't. I mean, you look all through the Constitution. It never points out one individual above another. But this decision does that. Roe v. Wade is one of the worst ever decisions the Supreme Court ever made. I'm sure there were others. I'm sure there are others that are really bad, but this one is the worst because it created a monster. I don't think, I have to think that those justices didn't envision the idea that millions of babies were going to be aborted and sold into making cosmetics and all that stuff. It's become a big business. I really don't think the justices thought that through. Of course, how could they? didn't happen until after they made this decision. So now 70 million aborted babies later, isn't it time we get this thing right? Roe v. Wade is unconstitutional, and those doofuses down in Congress should do something about it, but they're not. Because abortion has become a big business. And we know that Republicans, for example, love big business, but so do the Democrats. I mean, without big business, Democrats wouldn't ever be elected to office. Somebody has to support the Democrats in order for them to be reelected. Somebody has to pay the bill, because it takes a lot of money to get elected to any office in this day and age. So whether Republican or Democrat, I don't care how many times they say they're pro-life, they're not. They sure don't act like it. I mean, let me tell you something. If Republicans are pro-life, they had the first 2 years of the Bush administration to do something about it. Well, they banned partial birth abortion, which even the Democrats agreed with. But here we had another 2 years of Republican rule during the Trump administration, and they did nothing about abortion. So you tell me, are Republicans really pro-life? I don't think so. Roe v. There's other reasons why Roe v. Wade is unconstitutional. Let's see if I can go down to another article that I wrote. Oh, come on. Go. This thing is going very slow. Okay. Now, let's see. I already mentioned that Roe v. Wade, equal protection of the laws, where the 14th Amendment states that no person within the jurisdiction of a state may be deprived of the equal protection of the laws. But the court did this very thing in Roe v. Wade. They allowed women a right, but they did not allow men to have the same right. Okay, so I've already been through that, so I don't have to read that. Anyway, folks, let's face it. Roe v. Wade is unconstitutional in many different ways. It gives rights to someone that they didn't give the rights to others. And under the Constitution, you cannot set an individual up as higher than another. You can't do that. That's one of the reasons why I believe we need to get back to the Constitution. Because if we got back to the Constitution, we would have a Congress that would have no choice but to do something about Roe v. Wade, because Roe v. Wade is unconstitutional. Now, I've got a question about the excuse me. I got the question about the overall pro-life movement. Are they pro-life? I mean, I'm sure they have lawyers. And I'm sure they have lawyers that ran for office. Didn't they know about this? Didn't they know that Roe v. Wade is unconstitutional? I mean, where are the lawyers in this? All they do is pass one law after another so that the court system can become a beacon of whatever. Roe v. Wade is unconstitutional, and there should have been a pro-life lawyer somewhere long before this that figured that out. Where are they? There are people that are as ardently pro-life as I am. And I'm sure once they hear this, they're going to be a little upset too. I'm sure there are supposedly lawyers who claim they are pro-life, but they're not showing it. Because of the inaction of pro-life legal people, millions of babies have been aborted. We have a pro-death culture. It's so much easier to understand the death of somebody than the life of somebody. Isn't that true? Anyway, we have a pro-death culture. Now, not everybody in our culture is pro-death. I have to point that out. When I say we have a pro-death culture, it was a general statement. I was not referring to individuals. But the pro-death culture is winning out. And it's time for us pro-lifers to take the bull by the horns. We've got to find real pro-life people for president, for Congress, for people who understand that Roe v. Wade is unconstitutional and are willing to do something about it. We don't have that today. Where are you, Rand Paul? Where are you, Mitch McConnell? Where are you, Ted Cruz, you fraud? They haven't done a thing. They could have passed a Personhood Act in the first 2 years of the Trump administration, but they didn't. Wow. I didn't realize I was going to go over 20 minutes with this, but hey, this is an important issue. One of the most important issues today, and has been an important issue for a long time. It's probably among the most important issues of my lifetime. Now, I didn't know about Roe v. Wade when I was younger. In 1973, what was I? I would have been 20. 76, I was 77. No, 76, I was 20. So it was 3 years before, so I was, 17? Hey, when you're a teenager, you don't care about what's going on in politics. What do you care about when you're 17? Girls. Anyway, but, you just, for some reason, when you're 17, I don't know, maybe it comes younger for some boys. But I was 17 and I was not interested in what the Supreme Court was doing. Anyway, okay. Folks, I want you to share this opinion, share this commentary with other people. And those of you who might have I did take notice to one or two. If you have a pro-life radio network on the internet, go ahead. Go ahead and put this on your air. Put this on your programming list. Somebody has to do something. Roe v. Wade is unconstitutional. And I could probably go on for hours talking about this. So I guess I really ought to have my own radio show. Okay, listen, I'm approaching 25 minutes. I don't, this is getting into sermon area. But anyway, but it's such an important decision. I'll probably come back and revisit this issue. But it, really, folks, please share this commentary. That's my commentary for today. Thank you for listening.